After a 44-year break, the Scout brand is making a comeback with two exciting new models, the Traveler SUV and the Terra truck.
Right, let's jump into today's deep dive. We're going to be looking at Volkswagen and their plan to kind of break into this American truck market. They're doing it with an all-electric Scout lineup, and we've got a couple articles here that give us a little bit of a sneak peek at what they're working on. And I think a lot of people are wondering, can they pull this off? Can they actually compete with some of these companies like Ford and Rivian? Maybe even Tesla. We'll see.
What's interesting here is that they're reviving this Scout name. You might remember those were those rugged SUVs back in the day, and they were actually built by International Harvester, and that company is now owned by Volkswagen.
So they're bringing back, a little blast from the past, but this time it's electric. They've got two models that they've unveiled, the Terra pickup truck and the Traveler SUV. But I'm curious, can they really tap into that nostalgia and win over, these truck buyers with a brand that's been, dormant for decades?
Well, that's really the question, isn't it? But they're betting on the fact that this Scout name still has a lot of weight to it, especially with people who remember the original vehicles. And those vehicles had a really solid reputation for being tough and having that real off-road capability. I mean, think of it this way. That Scout name, it already has a built-in reputation for being rugged. So Volkswagen doesn't have to start from scratch to convince you that they can handle, some rough terrain.
Yeah, so they're sort of borrowing that credibility.
Yeah.
And hoping that rubs off on these new electric trucks, right?
Yeah.
But let's be real, nostalgia alone won't sell these trucks in today's market. I mean, what about the vehicles themselves? What do we know about them?
Well, from the articles I was looking at, it looks like both the Terra and the Traveler, they're expected to start under $60,000.
And this is where it gets interesting, because that price could actually drop even lower with federal tax credits for EVs. I mean, we could be talking about a $50,000 electric truck, which makes it a real contender, I think. Wow, a $50,000 electric truck. Now, that definitely has my attention, but, what about the people that aren't ready to go all electric yet? I mean, range anxiety is a real thing, especially if you're using your truck for work or towing.
Yeah, Volkswagen has thought of that, though. They're offering a gas-powered range extender. You can get it as an option for people who just want that extra peace of mind, right? It's essentially like a backup gas tank, for longer hauls, or if you're driving in an area that just doesn't have a lot of charging stations.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty smart way to address, one of the biggest barriers for people, I think, to get into EVs, especially in that truck market where people need to know that they can go the distance.
So they're trying to appeal to both the eco-conscious and, like you said, that range-anxious crowd. But what about the features? I mean, what makes these trucks stand out from everything else that's already out there? I know in the articles, some of the things that they were talking about, they were talking about some really serious off-roading capabilities, body-on-frame construction, locking differentials, high ground clearance, water fording. I mean, it sounds like they're ready to tackle anything.
Yeah, and all that means is that this is built to handle some serious situations, not just a gravel road. I mean, it seems like Volkswagen, they're really going after a truck that can compete with the best in the off-road segment.
Okay, so we know that it's rugged,
Uh-huh.
but how fast is this thing? I mean, I know the articles I was reading had some pretty mind-blowing performance figures. I mean, we're talking like potential for 1,000 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60s in as little as 3.5 seconds.
I mean, come on, that's supercar territory.
Volkswagen is definitely making a statement here about the power and capability of electric trucks. Right. I mean, they're not just slapping the Scout name on any old EV. They're going for performance that will turn heads, I think.
But speed isn't everything, right? What about design? Are these just like souped up, futuristic looking boxes, or have they actually managed to capture some of that, that classic Scout style?
Well, from the design sketches that we've seen, it looks like they're striking a balance, right, between retro styling cues from those original Scouts and then some of those more modern aesthetics, like LED lighting, and they're showing these spacious, airy interiors. So they're trying to evoke, I think, that classic ruggedness while still feeling contemporary.
So they've nailed the looks, they've got the tech. But how are they actually going to get these trucks in your driveway? I know in the articles they mentioned something pretty interesting. They're planning on selling these Scouts directly to customers. That's right. They're going to skip the traditional dealership model and go direct to consumer. Kind of following the lead of companies like Tesla, where you'd buy your Scout online and you'd probably have it delivered right to your door.
Wow. No dealerships at all. That direct-to-consumer model is a big change. What do you think is driving that shift in the industry?
Well, it offers a lot of advantages, I think, for both the consumer and the automaker. For you, it means a more transparent buying experience, maybe better prices, and the ability to customize your vehicle without being limited by what a particular dealership has in stock. And then for Volkswagen, it means they have more control over pricing, the customer experience, and they probably even have lower overhead costs, too.
It's like cutting out the middleman entirely.
Yeah.
But what about things like test drives and service? How does that work without a dealer network?
Well, those are definitely valid concerns, and it'll be interesting to see how Volkswagen addresses them. They'll probably need to create alternative solutions, right? Maybe pop up showrooms for test drives, or maybe they'll partner with independent service centers for maintenance and repairs.
Okay, so it's a bold move with some potential hurdles to overcome, but I think one thing is clear. Volkswagen's serious about making a splash here in this electric truck market.
Hmm.
They've got the brand, they've got the vehicles, they've got the tech, they've got a whole new sales model. But can they actually convince truck buyers to embrace this new vision of what the Scout is?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, they're taking a big gamble. And it'll be fascinating to see if it pays off. But you know what? I think we need to dive a bit deeper into some of the potential challenges that they're facing.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit here.
Yeah.
And let's talk about some of those challenges. What are the biggest obstacles standing in Volkswagen's way?
Well, the electric truck market is already pretty crowded,
Yeah.
Would you say that?
Yeah, it is. And it's only going to get more competitive, right? You got Ford with its F-150 Lightning that's already out there, Rivian making some waves with that R1T, and then there's the Tesla Cybertruck, whenever that thing actually arrives.
Exactly. And let's not forget the established players, right? Like
Yeah.
Chevy and Ram, they're all investing heavily in electric trucks too. So Volkswagen's entering a market where I think brand loyalty runs deep and the competition is fierce.
Yeah, so how can they stand out from the crowd? What's their unique angle here? I mean, they're banking on this nostalgia. But is that really enough? I mean, what if the younger buyers have never even heard of the Scout?
You're right to be skeptical, I think. Nostalgia might attract some buyers, but it's not going to be the deciding factor for everyone, right? Volkswagen needs to deliver on the performance and the features that truck buyers demand, and they need to convince those buyers, especially in the heartland, that they understand their needs, I mean, Volkswagen has really struggled to gain traction in that market in the past. This is their chance to really prove that they can build a truck that's tough, that's capable, and American made.
Well, speaking of performance, on paper, these Scouts, they seem pretty impressive. We talked about that potential for 1,000 pound-feet of torque,
Yeah.
0 to 60 in as little as 3.5 seconds. But, will those numbers actually translate into real-world performance?
That's the question. Specs are one thing, but that actual driving experience is what matters, right? Truck buyers need to know that their vehicle can handle, some tough terrain, tow heavy loads, and just perform reliably in all sorts of conditions. So Volkswagen is going to need to back up these impressive numbers with some real-world demonstrations.
It's like they're saying, trust us, this thing's a beast, but they haven't really proven it yet. What are some of the specific challenges you think they'll face with, electric trucks in particular?
Well, battery range and charging infrastructure, I think, are major considerations, for any EV, especially trucks. I mean, think about it. If you're using your truck for work, you're hauling heavy loads, you're towing a trailer, that range is going to deplete much faster, And if you're on a job site that's miles from the nearest charging station, that could be a real problem.
So Volkswagen needs to make sure that these trucks can, handle the demands of real work and play, not just, short commutes.
Exactly. And then there's the question of price, too. I mean, while that starting price under $60,000 is competitive, it's still a significant investment for most people. And, with gas prices being as unpredictable as they are, it's tough to say how the cost of owning an EV will compare to a gas-powered truck in the long run.
Yeah, so they've got the nostalgia factor. They've got, these impressive specs on paper. But it seems like they have a lot to prove when it comes to actual performance and practicality. Is there anything else they need to address to kind of win over those skeptical truck buyers?
Brand perception is going to be a big one, I think. Volkswagen, they have a good reputation in the car market, but they're relatively new to this whole truck segment, and truck buyers are a loyal bunch, right? They might be a little hesitant to switch to a brand that's not traditionally known for building, those tough, reliable trucks.
Yeah, it's almost like a chef known for their, like, delicate pastries, suddenly deciding to open a barbecue joint. I think people will be a little skeptical at first.
That's a great analogy. Volkswagen's going to need to convince those hardcore truck enthusiasts that they understand their needs and that they can build a vehicle that can stand up to the rigors of daily use. They'll need to prove that the Scout is more than just a flashy EV with a familiar name. They need to earn their place, I think, in that truck world.
So it's a tough road ahead for Volkswagen. They're facing some stiff competition. They need to prove themselves on performance and practicality, and they need to overcome some of that skepticism about their brand. Is there anything working in their favor here?
Well, they're not just throwing darts at a board here. I think their strategy seems pretty well thought out. They're tapping into this beloved brand. They're focusing on that off-road capability. They're embracing that direct-to-consumer model, and they're giving themselves plenty of time to prepare. Remember, these trucks aren't hitting the market until 2027. So that gives them 5 years to refine those designs, to build anticipation, and hopefully address some of these potential challenges.
5 years is a long time in the tech world, though. I mean, a lot can change between now and then.
You're absolutely right. I mean, that EV landscape is evolving so rapidly, and new technologies and competitors could come out of nowhere. Battery technology could advance significantly, charging infrastructure could become much more widespread, and consumer preferences could shift.
So even with a solid plan, I mean, Volkswagen's taking a pretty big risk, right? You're betting on the future, and there are a lot of unknowns. But let's say they manage to pull it off. What would a successful Scout launch mean for Volkswagen?
I mean, it would be huge. Imagine if they could capture even just a small slice of that electric truck market. I mean, it would solidify their position, I think, as a major IRA player in the EV space and demonstrate that they can compete in a segment that's really crucial for the American market.
Yeah, it would open up a whole new customer base for them, too.
Precisely. I mean, if they can convince truck buyers that the Scout is the real deal, it could really change perceptions of Volkswagen as a whole. It could be a game changer.
So while the challenges are pretty significant, the potential rewards are huge. It'll be interesting to watch how this unfolds. But, we've been talking a lot about, the strategy in the market. What about the trucks themselves? We touched on the design a little bit earlier, but I'm curious to hear a little bit more about, what we know about their look and feel.
Well, from what we've seen, Volkswagen is trying to strike a really delicate balance. They want to capture that essence of the original Scout, that rugged, boxy, adventurous vibe. But they also want to incorporate modern design elements, Think like LED lighting, clean lines, spacious, comfortable interiors. I think they want these trucks to feel both classic and contemporary.
Yeah, it sounds like they're going for that heritage-inspired look that's become really popular in the auto industry. But, will it resonate with today's truck buyers?
Yeah.
I mean, nostalgia is one thing, but these trucks need to feel relevant and appealing to a modern audience.
That's right. They can't just rely on retro charm. They need to create a design that feels, I think, authentic to the Scout heritage, but also incorporate modern technology and amenities.
Yeah, I know the articles mentioned some pretty cool features, like a glass roof with a power sunshade and a power folding fabric. Cabana roof, I think they called it. It sounds like they're aiming for a blend of ruggedness and refinement.
Exactly. They want these trucks to be as comfortable cruising down the highway as they are, tackling a rugged trail. They're creating a vehicle that can handle, I think, your everyday needs, but also, take you on an adventure.
And all of this is being, packaged and delivered through this new direct-to-consumer model. It's almost like they're creating this whole Scout ecosystem, right? You buy the truck online, you get it delivered to your door, and you interact with Volkswagen directly for service and support.
It's bold, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, this direct-to-consumer approach could really shake up the traditional dealership model.
Yeah, it's a reminder that the auto industry is in a state of flux, and the companies that are willing to embrace new ideas and adapt to those changing consumer preferences are the ones that are going to succeed.
Speaking of changing preferences, we focused a lot on Volkswagen's perspective here, but what about the bigger picture? What does this whole Scout revival tell us about the broader trends that are shaping the auto industry?
That's a really good point. This Scout story is just one small piece of this much larger transformation that's happening across the entire automotive landscape.
Yeah.
So let's zoom out a little bit and let's talk about some of those trends. What are the key forces that are driving this evolution?
Well, I mean, the shift towards electric vehicles is undeniable, right? It's the most significant trend. I mean, nearly every major automaker is investing heavily in EVs. And we're seeing this rapid expansion of electric models across all
It's
segments.
like the entire industry is going through this, like electric awakening.
Exactly. And this shift is being fueled by a lot of factors, right? Concerns about climate change, government regulations, advancements in battery technology, and just a growing consumer demand for sustainable transportation options. I think all of those are contributing to this rise of EVs.
So it's not just a fad. This is like a fundamental shift in how we think about cars and transportation. And Volkswagen's jumping headfirst into this new era with the Scouts.
They are. And what's interesting is they're not simply trying to create an electric version of a traditional truck. They're reviving this brand that has a history of innovation and adventure, and they're using it as this platform to showcase their vision for the future of electric mobility.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, hey, electric vehicles can be cool and capable and fun too.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I mean, they're not just trying to appeal to the eco-conscious crowd. They're trying to create a vehicle that will appeal to truck enthusiasts who might otherwise be hesitant to go electric.
So the Scout revival is about more than just selling trucks. It's about changing perceptions of what an electric vehicle can be.
Precisely. It's a bold experiment, and the results could have ripple effects throughout the whole auto industry.
It's exciting to think about the possibilities. What kind of advancements in electric vehicle technology do you think we'll see the next few years?
Well, I think we can expect to see continued improvements in battery technology, which will lead to, longer ranges, faster charging times, and lower costs. We might also see some more sophisticated driver assistance systems, and perhaps even, fully autonomous driving capabilities in the future. Imagine a self-driving electric Scout exploring the backcountry. It's not as far-fetched as it sounds.
It sounds like we're on the cusp of a transportation revolution, and the Scout is right there in the mix,
Yeah.
pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But before we get too carried away with speculation about the future, let's bring it back to the present for a second. What are some of the key takeaways for our listeners as they kind of follow this Scout story?
Well, I think the most important takeaway is that the auto industry is in this period of really rapid change, right? And the Scout revival is, I think, a perfect example of how companies are adapting and innovating to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even iconic brands like the Scout need to evolve to stay relevant in a changing world.
Exactly. And for you, as a potential truck buyer, I think it's important to keep an open mind about the possibilities of electric vehicles.
Yeah.
The Scout is just one example of all the exciting new options that are coming to market.
Yeah, it's a great reminder that the future of mobility is electric, and Volkswagen's hoping that the Scout will kind of lead the charge.
Yeah.
But, with a launch date set for 2027, we have a little bit of a wait ahead of us. So what should we be paying attention to as this story unfolds over the next few years?
Well, there are a lot of interesting things to watch, right? I mean, keep an eye on how Volkswagen addresses these challenges that we've been discussing. How will they refine the design? How will they actually prove the Scout's capability? How will they build that direct-to-consumer sales and service network? And perhaps most importantly, how will they convince truck buyers that the Scout is a worthy successor to this legendary nameplate?
And as the EV market continues to evolve, how will Volkswagen keep the Scout ahead of the curve?
Yeah, that's a key question. Will they be able to keep pace with the advancements in battery technology, charging infrastructure and driver assistance systems? And how will they respond to new competitors that enter the market?
So many questions. And we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But one thing is certain, this Scout revival is a bold gamble that could have a significant impact on the future of the auto industry.
Yeah, it's a story about innovation, risk-taking, and the enduring power of legendary brand.
It's a story about the past, the present, and the future of trucks. And it's a story we'll be following closely.
Yeah, it's a story about the past, the present, and the future of trucks.
And it's a story we'll be following closely. We've been talking about, Volkswagen's big bet on the electric truck market with this revival of the Scout brand. And one of the most intriguing aspects of this whole strategy, I think, is their decision to sell these trucks directly to customers.
Yeah.
Cutting out the dealerships entirely.
It's a bold move. And, it's becoming more and more common, I think, in the EV space. I mean, companies like Tesla have already paved the way, and now Volkswagen's following suit.
Yeah, I could see the appeal for both sides. For Volkswagen, it gives them more control over the entire process,
Yeah.
from pricing to the customer experience. And for you as a buyer, it potentially means a simpler, more transparent buying process. But I'm curious about the potential downsides. What are we losing by skipping that whole dealership experience?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is the lack of a physical dealership network. Some people they really value that ability to see a vehicle in person, kick
Mm.
the tires, take it for a test drive before they make such a big purchase.
Right, and I'm imagining if you're out in a more rural area,
Yeah.
that having that local dealership for service and maintenance could be pretty crucial.
Absolutely. I mean, if you live far from a service center, getting repairs or even just routine maintenance could become a major headache. And then there's the question of human interaction too, right? I mean, some people they really value that relationship they build with a local salesperson or a service advisor.
Yeah, that personal touch can make a big difference, especially when you're making a big purchase like a truck.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Volkswagen's going to need to find some creative solutions to address these concerns, though. They might consider things like pop-up showrooms
Yeah.
or maybe even like mobile service units to reach customers that live outside of major cities.
Those are good ideas, and it'll be interesting to see how the traditional dealership model kind of adapts to this shift towards direct-to-consumer sales. I mean, this could be a real turning point for the whole industry.
Absolutely. Dealerships have been a cornerstone of the auto industry for decades, but in a world where you can, buy and service your vehicle online, their role may need to evolve.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Volkswagen Scout Gamble,
Hmm.
what are the key takeaways that you hope our listener is walking away with?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that the automotive world is changing at an incredible pace. The rise of electric vehicles, the shift towards sustainability, and this evolving relationship between automakers and customers are all forces that are reshaping the industry as we know it.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time to be following this space, and Volkswagen Scout Revival is right at the forefront of that change.
It's a bold move.
Yeah.
And only time will tell if it's going to succeed, but it's a clear signal that Volkswagen is committed to innovation, right?
Yeah.
And pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the EV market. I mean, they're taking a risk, but they're also making a statement about their vision for the future.
And it's a reminder that even a brand with a rich history like Scout,
Mhm.
needs to adapt and evolve to stay relevant. This isn't just about, nostalgia. It's about reimagining what a truck can be in the 21st century.
Absolutely. And for you as a listener, I hope this deep dive had given you a glimpse into the forces that are shaping the future of the auto industry.
Yeah, we've explored the challenges and opportunities facing Volkswagen, the technical innovations that they're bringing to the table,
Yeah.
and the broader trends that are driving this shift towards electric mobility. But ultimately, I think the success of the Scout will depend on whether it can capture the hearts and minds of truck buyers.
Will it live up to the legacy of its name?
Hmm.
Will it actually deliver on those promises of performance and capability?
Cool.
Will it resonate with a new generation of adventurers? Only time will tell.
Well, it's been an exciting ride exploring this story with you, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye on how it all unfolds in the years to come. But for now, we'll park it here.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about this Scout revival, and you mentioned those potential challenges earlier, but it seems like Volkswagen is trying to address at least some of them with this direct-to-consumer sales model.
Right. I mean, they're cutting out the middleman entirely, basically, which is a pretty big deal, I think.
And like we talked about before, it seems like a lot of EV companies are moving in this direction. But I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah.
Especially for those folks who really value that traditional dealership experience, being able to walk onto a lot, kick the tires, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could see that being a big hurdle for some people, especially like you said, if you're used to that face-to-face interaction,
Mm-hmm.
or you want to be able to test drive a vehicle before you commit to buying it.
Right. And for some people, it's not just about the sales process. It's also about having a local dealership that you can rely on for service and maintenance,
Hmm.
especially if you're not, in a big city.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what do you think? How do they overcome those challenges? I mean, is there a way to kind of bridge that gap between the online world and that more traditional, brick and mortar experience?
Well, I think there are a few things that Volkswagen could do. They could set up some pop-up showrooms in different cities, maybe even some mobile service units that can, travel to more rural areas,
Yeah.
so people don't have to drive hundreds of miles just to get their vehicle service.
Yeah, I mean that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Like a Scout on wheels, kind of bringing the dealership experience to the customer.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
so I mean it's clear that Volkswagen is really trying to shake things up here. I mean not just with the Scout itself, but with the way that they're selling it.
Right. They're definitely thinking outside the box.
And I guess only time will tell if it's going to pay off. But
Yeah.
but regardless of whether the Scout is a success or not, I think this whole story is a really fascinating example of how the auto industry is changing.
Right. It's this perfect case study, I think, of how these legacy automakers are trying to adapt to this new world of electric vehicles and direct consumer sales.
And it's a reminder that no one is immune to disruption, even
Yeah.
even a company with a history as long and storied as Volkswagen.
Yeah, for sure.
So as we kind of wrap things up here, what are some of the key takeaways that you hope our listeners are walking away with today?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that the automotive industry is at a crossroads.
Yeah.
We're seeing this massive shift towards electrification, towards sustainability, towards new ways of buying and selling vehicles.
Yeah, and the Scout revival is right at the center of all that. It's
Hmm.
this bold bet on the future of trucks. And it'll be really fascinating to see how it all plays out.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening, I think the best thing you can do is just keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Embrace the change that's happening and be ready for some really exciting new vehicles in the years to come.
And who knows, maybe one of those vehicles will be a Scout parked in your driveway.
Oh, we'll have to wait and see.
All right, well, it's been great chatting with you about all this.
Yeah, likewise.
And thanks to all of you out there for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.